let's go over my arrows. My arrows, I got carbon arrows, a couple monster bucks from Gold Tip. So these are carbon, like I said. I got 100 grain field points on the front of them, just like that. And these veins right here, I wish I had a normal size vein that I can show to you. Normal size vein is probably inch and a half longer and taller as well. But these veins right here, they're short and they're called blazers. Alright. The reason I got these short veins is because I shoot a whisker biscuit arrow rest. If I shot a normal vein through my whisker biscuit, over time, after like 100 shots or so, my veins, they get wavy. It like stretches them out. Like if you take a piece of ribbon and you like take a scissor up to it, and how they make it all curly and stuff like that. That's basically what it does here. It just makes it all wavy, and it can rip them off. So over time, after you're shooting, you're going to lose accuracy, and you can also lose a fletching. So these veins, they're real short, they're real strong veins. They poke right through those whiskers, and they fly just as true as a normal size vein. So there's no difference to them, just other than the fact that they're smaller and stronger, and they poke right through these whiskers. So that's why I got them. There's a couple different types of arrows, actual types, not brands. This is a carbon arrow, like I said. It's lightweight, it's really flexible, it's really strong. You can shoot aluminum arrows through it as well, but aluminum arrows are kind of displacing themselves. They're kind of like VCR tapes. They're like going away. They're a lot heavier, and like I said, they're aluminum, so if you hit something, you hit that, you're going to hear that metal tang. One thing you cannot shoot through compound bows is a wooden arrow. You cannot shoot a wooden arrow through a compound bow, because if you ever shoot a compound bow and you watch it in slow motion, the force on the arrow is like this. It bends it up and down, bends it through the air, like it's crazy. So if you shoot a wooden arrow through it, you might be able to shoot once, twice, but after that the force is too great onto that wooden arrow, and it's gonna break, shatter in midair. So you cannot shoot wooden arrows through a compound bow. Another piece of gear that is good to have, a bow case. A bow case. I have one in my vehicle right now, and it's a hard shell bookcase, or bow case, excuse me. What you do is you Velcro everything down into the padded part, and you close it, and it has a hard case on top, so it can support weight. Everything stays centered, everything stays protected. So if you throw it around, it gets knocked around. You're not going to break a pin off your sight. You're not going to lose your zero. You're not going to break your whole sights off, and everything stays all together, and it doesn't bounce around in your truck or whatever you have. So if you're going to be transporting your bow a lot, or just taking it to hunting, wherever you're going, I recommend buying a bow case, just because it does keep everything secure, and it's good for the overall welfare of your bow. Another thing is, a little tip for you guys: do not keep your bow in your vehicle or in a really hot area, okay? Because if you keep your bow inside the vehicle, the limbs over time get weak, especially with recurves and wooden bows. The limbs get weak, so when you pull it back, they can crack, and then after they crack, you don't want to be shooting it no more, because these things can blow up in your face. Like I said, with recurved bows especially. Another thing with recurves, you don't want to keep them drawn the whole time while you're storing them. If you're gonna store them, you're gonna unstring them, just so the limbs don't get weak on you and eventually break over time. But on the subject of limbs weakening and breaking, the same thing is, don't dry fire a bow. Dry firing a bow is pulling your bow back, no arrow on, and then releasing. Okay? I'm not going to dry fire the bow, but releasing it, when you release the string, every force that the limbs generate, the cam generates, the string generates, gets transferred into this arrow as a projectile, and it goes out, right? If that arrow's not there, all that force has to go into something, so it goes into the limbs, and that weakens them, and over time that could break them. So if you dry fire a bow, get it inspected, make sure everything's still good, but just don't do it. Okay? So don't draw back with no arrow on and release it, because that's a big no-no. So now that I talked about what gear I got, I'm gonna get into how to get into your basic stance, and then from there we'll talk about how knocking, how to get into the woods, how to hit a range, and that's coming up real soon, so stay with me. Hey guys, now that I talked about all my gear, I'm going to talk about how to get into a basic stance to shoot a compound bow. Alright? Your feet want to be shoulder width apart, just like this, just how they are right now. Alright? If you were my target, my body is going to be oriented at a 90 degrees perpendicular to the target. Alright? You're the target. My weak hand, my non-shooting hand, this is my shooting hand, this is my non-shooting hand, is going to be forward. My non-shooting leg is also going to be forward. Alright? If you have to get a better stance, you can widen up a little bit, or you can open up your front foot, whatever you need to be, but make sure your stance is balanced and centered, so I'm not falling over. It's just like if you're a boxer, you know, your natural fighting stance is how it should be. Alright? Just make sure it's balanced, make sure everything's good. One thing that is key when shooting a compound bow is these sights. See how these sights are run straight up and down? That's because the trajectory of my arrow is coming out and going straight down with gravity. So these sights are running straight up and down. That's why it's key to hold your bow straight up and down. Because if it's canted just a little bit, now look what that did to my sights. The arrow is still going to come out and go straight down, but now my sights are at this angle, not the same angle as the trajectory is taking, or the gravity is taking the arrow. So that's the big key thing with shooting a compound bow with sights. Everything stays straight up and down. My grip on my compound bow is a relaxed grip. Alright, you're not going to white knuckle squeeze it just like this. You're going to keep it relaxed. I only grab with these two fingers right here, just like this. This is all I grab with. I grab and I rotate my wrist down just like that. Lock it down. One thing is also your arm right here. If you have a tendency to hyperextend your elbow, or it's just how natural you are, what you're going to do is, there's this thing called an arm guard. It's basically a leather piece that just goes over your arm, protects your arm from getting hit from that sling. Because I tell you what, when I was a kid, that's just how my arms actually were until I got some meat on my bone. And every time I would shoot, I would get burned so bad. It would hurt. I just never wanted to shoot until I got an arm guard, and when that sling hit, it just bounced right off. Didn't do anything about it. So they make them in leather, nylon, and all it does is just protect your arm from that sling. So kids might need that whenever they start off. You wanna give them that just in case. But if you can control it, you want to have your arm just a little bit bent, just like that. You don't want to try to extend it all the way. Just keep it a little bent, so that sling will just pass right by. Another thing is, if you're wearing a long sleeve like you would be hunting, and I recommend wearing what you're hunting whenever you practice. Alright? Obviously, if you go hunting in the middle of winter and it's August, you're not going to bundle up and pass out from heat exhaustion. But you need to, if you're going to wear long sleeves and they're going to be all baggy like that, like most long sleeves are in hunting shirts, you want to get an arm guard. Or what I do, it's because I'm cheap. No, I'm just kidding. But this tube part of a sock, I just cut it off of an earth tone sock, brown, black, whatever. I just slid it over the top so it kept all the fabric down. Because if that fabric's dangling there and that string catches, it might cant your bow left or right, whatever, and the impact of your arrow is not going to be off now because it just it caught your bow. So that's what I do. Another thing is ball caps. If you're going to be shooting and you're wearing a ball cap while you're hunting, you want to make sure that you're wearing it when you're practicing. Because if you're pulling back, I don't know how many times I've hit the top of my ball cap with my string just because that's how I pulled it back. And the time to realize that your ball cap's in the way is not the time where you're looking down your sights at a 10-point buck. Right? So practice, know where you have to have it. You have to have it turned backwards, you have to have it turned backwards, but then just know that your face is going to be exposed to the sunlight and the glare from your oil and all that stuff. But that'll be all talked about in the hunting videos that we make with the compound bow.